Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We will be covering drinking water tools for small systems. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the webinar website within a few weeks. In the navigation bar on the right side of your screen, a copy of the slides has been provided under the handouts dropdown. And if you experience any audio issues or can't view the slides at any point during the webinar, you can let us know by typing out questions in that questions drop-down box. And as always, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So we encourage you to type your questions in that questions drop-down box. So to earn a attendance certificate, you must be registered within or be in the room with someone who is registered. You must attend the live webinar for 60 minutes. And if you are in the room with others, please type in the names of the people who are not logged in into that question box. Our upcoming webinars, so on March 12th, EPA is hosting the Assistance for Small and Disadvantaged Communities Drinking Water Grants webinar. The link is on the webpage. And our next month's webinar topic is Drinking Water Regulations 101 and Best Practices for Small Systems. And we are happy to announce that the 17th Annual EPA Drinking Water Workshop is open and the registration is live. We are also calling for abstracts. You can submit that on our website, and this abstract period closes March 26th. And if you've attended our webinar before, here's EPA's standard disclaimer. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Matt Reed. So Matt works with EPA's National Operator Certification Coordinator and conducts filer reviews of state public drinking water supervision programs. He started his environmental career with the U.S. Coast Guard as a marine science technician and later joined EPA in Region 9. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Matt, and he will cover supporting the water workforce tools for water system operators.
Okay, thank you, Brooke. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us here today. So I want to go over a quick overview of the tools. So there are two that I'm going to be going over today that have been out in use for a while, for several years, but do warrant some highlighting. And the first is the knowledge retention tool that was rolled out in 2017. And for the retention tool, we're going to go over its uses, benefits, and key features. And the second is the electronic preventive maintenance cards that were rolled out around the same time. And for this, we'll cover the key features of the electronic update. So just a quick bit of background on these tools. After the 2015 National Capacity Development and Operator Certification Workshop hosted by EPA and ASDWA, excuse me, EPA formed a national workforce work group. And the work group identified two areas where EPA could provide operators with resources to address their greatest needs, including knowledge transfer in succession planning and improved planning methods for preventive maintenance. Out of these needs, the group developed the knowledge retention tool and the electronic preventive maintenance logs. So to address the first identified challenge, the knowledge retention tool, it was designed to help operators pass on their wealth of knowledge about their system to other operators. And this can be very useful if an operator is planning for retirement, or for a new contract operator or a short-term operator. And we all know that operators have vast knowledge about their own systems, and this tool works to capture all of that information in one easy-to-use and easy-to-share place. This can also be a great tool to help train a new operator, helping them learn the different aspects of that system. And some of the topics include the general system information, emergency response, system operation, administrative information, and information on neighboring systems. And you can find this tool at the website that's on the screen. And just a screenshot of the tool. Here you can see the different tabs set to cover contacts, source water, emergencies, et cetera, that the operator would put into the tool. And in summary, we see incredible value in having operators work through this tool and gather all of the information that it highlights. And because it does require some time and effort to properly complete the information, we think leadership at each utility will need to decide if they are dedicated to fostering the continuity during transitional periods or in a daily multi-operator setup. And the time investment in implementing, or completing the information in the tool is estimated at around 10 to 15 hours. And then any updates throughout the year would typically take only an hour, 1 or 2 times a year in most cases. And now we're going to jump over to the electronic preventive maintenance logs. These logs were an electronic update to the previously published preventive maintenance card file for small public water systems using groundwater that was released in 2004. And the update that we rolled out is a PDF file that's now available for download at the link on your screen. And then once you get to the web page, click on Resources for Small System Operators, and you'll get to it. The file package includes a series of interactive PDFs. And similar to the card file, the electronic logs include suggested tasks throughout the year to help operators maintain records of system maintenance and incorporate long-term planning for infrequent tasks. As you'll see, this version can be customized by the operator to meet the needs of his or her system. The logs are designed to allow space to add tasks that are specific to that one system or move monthly and quarterly tasks around according to their specific schedule. So what's inside? The logs are very extensive with 142 pages. So I'm only going to briefly go over some of the highlights. The package includes a file for each month of the year, instructions, annual logs, and security and customer complaint logs. Operators can choose to use the files electronically, or they can also print them and enter the information manually. And since not everyone can remember every single conversion equation needed at the system, and mistakes can be easily made, we also included the conversion tables for the system operators to utilize throughout their workday. Correct and current system information is important, and this part of the tool can be edited to reflect current workforce names with contact information, and can be easily updated when someone comes or goes from within the organization. And since memorized phone numbers or contact names can suddenly become or be forgotten during an emergency, we also included a large number of organizations that can be listed with proper names and numbers in case there is an emergency and the operator needs to reach out. Also included is a water production log to help the operator keep track in an easy-to-use way. And as you can see from the table of contents here, there are logs ready to use for chemical usage, tank levels, feed pumps, and quite a bit more. And at the bottom of this screen, you'll see the weekly and monthly operational duties as well. And this screen shows a customizable plan to schedule out regular maintenance tasks. And that is it for my updates on these two tools. So thank you for listening, and we'll go ahead and hand it over to Sarah.
Great, thank you, Matt. So our next speaker is Sarah Bradbury. Sarah is a physical scientist with EPA's Drinking Water Protection Division in the Office of Water. She is currently working on the implementation of the Consumer Confidence Rule and Public Notification Rules. In her 10 years of experience, Sarah has opportunity to work on a variety of water resource topics, including TMDLs, water quality sampling, and source water protection. And with that, I will turn over to Sarah, who will give us an intro on the Consumer Confidence Reports iWriter.
Thanks, Brooke. I think we're having some technical difficulties with my screen. There we go. Great. Do I have? Hold on one second. All right, there we go. Now we're back in business. Thanks everyone for joining us today. So I'm the rule manager here at headquarters for the CCR and the PN rules. I work with regional colleagues to help implement those rules. During the presentation today, I'll use the term state, which refers to the primacy agencies, but could include tribes and EPA regional offices. There was a disclaimer at the beginning of the presentation, and just a reminder that this presentation is not legally binding, nor is a substitute for regulations. For more information, please refer to our federal regulations or your state primacy agency. So with that, I'll give you an overview of CCRs to make sure we're all on the same page. CCRs are due annually by July 1st. Wholesalers must provide information to their consecutive systems by April 1st or a mutually agreed upon date. And the systems must then send their certification of delivery to the state within 30 days or by October 1st. I should note that we've gotten a lot of questions about biannual deliveries, and that's related to the America's Water Infrastructure Act of 2018. The amendments to CIDWA required EPA to update their regulations. Those are not finalized yet, and so once they are final, we will include an effective date. So we're still on the annual July 1st deadline that we've had. So just to be clear, we're still doing annual, still due July 1st. So hopefully that clears up any questions. Reports must include water system information, source of water, definitions, detected contaminant tables, information on cryptosporidium, radon, and other contaminants, including voluntary monitoring, compliance or violations of any national primary drinking water regulations, information on any variants and exemptions that the system may be using, and there's additional required information. And we'll walk through this when we go through the demo of the iWriter. Screen seems to be sleeping. There we go. So what is the iWriter? It's a little, there we go, okay. What is the iWriter? It is a free tool for TA providers, water systems, anyone that may be developing a report to put that information into a CCR. There is a little bit of editing involved, but it makes life a little bit easier. All right, let's move on to the demo, but first I want to show a screenshot of our homepage as we catch up. There we go. All right, so screenshot of the iWriter homepage. There's the link up on the top of the slide, and notice that you can sign up for an account, a free account, or you can reset a password. If, for example, you're coming back after a year of not using it and you forgot your password, you can easily reset it using that front page, or you can create a help desk ticket if you're having other issues. And we do have someone that's available to respond to those. All right, you should be seeing my desktop at this point, and this is once you enter your login information, you'll get to this home page, and you can see I've already got a couple reports already set up, ready to go. But just to make your life a little easier, you can copy a previous year's report so that you don't have to enter everything. Hold on one second. Let's try this again. Okay, so we've copied last year's report, and instead of entering all of the operator contact information, the source water information, stuff that doesn't change, you can edit the stuff that does change, like the contaminant reporting. But for now, I'm going to go to a report that I've been working on, which is the 2020 report. And the first page you see is the water operator information, which was the first on that list of items. And it also has an area where you can enter in where your source water comes in and what size your system is. So when we start going through it, it'll take you through a couple prompts. No, I'm not distributing to independent or hydraulically independent portions of the system. No, I'm not a consecutive system. All right, here is the fun part, the contaminant information. So you can see that I've already started entering some information in here. For the purpose of this, we are going to edit the barium information, but there is a drop-down list of contaminants that you can pick out. You can see that I've entered in my value of 0.003 parts per million. There is an option to change units if your lab reports them in a different unit. Is all the sampling data from the calendar year of this consumer confidence report? Yes. For example, if it were a chemical contaminant and you were sampling once every 3 years or less than once a year, then you may enter in the year that you last sampled, up to 5 years. All right, now it's asking me, okay, well, where am I taking these samples? And my system has only one entry point, which with more than one sample that was used to determine compliance. Was the contaminant detected in all the samples? Nope, I had some non-detects. So I input the highest level that I detected, 2 parts per million. And then it asked me what the potential sources of that contaminant might be. And these are preloaded into the CCR iWriter that are similar to the CCR Rule Appendix A language. You can edit that if you know that there's a specific source for something, or you know, I don't have this in my watershed, you can edit that. All right, so as you can see, there's some red highlighting in there, and that's indicating that I've entered something that may indicate that there's a violation. And we'll talk about, and the iWriter will prompt the user through entering in the violation information. It has the relative health effects information already preloaded, so you don't have to look for that, which is nice. All right, for now, I have all my contaminants in. Oh, I should also note that if I were to enter in a new contaminant, let's pick antimony. If I sampled for it, but it didn't detect, there's a checkbox. There are some systems that like to include a list of contaminants, even if they didn't detect them, as a way of including it in the report. But for the CCR, the federal CCR rule, only the detected contaminants are required to be reported. So I just want to point that out. Moving on to the next section, our UCMR. If your system samples for UCMR, it's similar to the last section where you enter a new contaminant, pick from your dropdown, and enter in that information. And for UCMR, it's the average and the range that was detected in the previous year. All right, we're going to go on to the next section. If your state requires you to conduct any additional sampling, you can use the iWriter to input that information, and I'll show you what that might look like. So it has you enter what the contaminant is, what the relative maximum contaminant level might be, if there was any explanation that needed to happen, or health effects information. And I'll note that your handouts have additional screenshots. Here I'm doing the live demo, but your handouts will have screenshots of walking through these different sections as well with additional notes, just for your reference. So you can refer back to them. All right. Significant deficiencies. This falls under the reporting the violation information. So for the purpose of this demo, I already added information on a significant deficiency. So one of our wells had signs of deterioration where there were roots that were growing into the joints. And so we're in the process of replacing that in this, but we're in the planning phase, and so it might take longer than a year to complete. If you are a groundwater system that receives notice from the state of a significant deficiency, you must inform your customers of any significant deficiencies that are not corrected by December 31st of the year covered by your CCR. The CCR must include the following information: the nature of the significant deficiency and the date it was identified by the state, the state-approved plan and schedule for correction, including interim measures, progress to date, and any interim measures completed. And you must continue to inform your customers annually until the state determines the significant deficiency is corrected. And also note the state may also require you to include in your CCR significant deficiencies that were corrected by the end of the calendar year. If you are directed by the state to do this, you must inform your customers of the significant deficiencies, how it was corrected, and the date it was corrected in that year's CCR. And I'll also note that I have a slide of additional resources that has more information on completing your CCR beyond just the iWriter, because there may be more detailed information in those. All right, so this is part of the additional monitoring: cryptosporidium, radon, and voluntary monitoring data. So I'm not sampling for crypto. I'm not sampling for radon. If I did do voluntary monitoring, it's not required, but EPA strongly recommends that you report the information in your CCR and include any relevant health information and the monitoring information. Next, the iWriter walks you through other compliance information. So when you were entering in your contaminated information, the iWriter prompts you through the violations related to those contaminants. In this case, we may have some treatment techniques, for example, lead and copper rule or the groundwater rule. And so if you click yes on those, it'll walk you through. I'm sorry, there seems to be a lag. So if you do have a violation, you can click yes, and the iWriter will walk you through entering in the information on violations for that. And these are treatment techniques. The next section is monitoring and reporting, record keeping, special monitoring requirements, variance and exemption violations. And so here I'm reporting a monitoring violation. So we missed collecting our regular nitrate samples between April and June. We collected makeup samples in July. The results were non-detect. Since we did not sample from April to June, we cannot be sure the quality of your drinking water during that time. And that's just an example. So this should be noted that these are all hypothetical situations that I'm making up for the purposes of this demonstration. Does the system operate under variance and exemptions? Nope. All right. Systems that have a large portion of non-English speaking residents must include information in appropriate languages, expressing the importance of the report and offering it additional information on how to receive a translated report. If, as a general suggestion, EPA suggests systems serving a population of more than 5 to 10% of the population of non-English speaking add additional information or translations. The iWriter, as you can see, has Spanish and French. EPA also has additional resources that has a translated saying in, I believe, about 25 different languages, and it says this report contains important information about your drinking water. Have someone translate it for you or speak with someone who understands it. So we can talk about how to edit your report once you're done, but that's just another additional resource that we have. All right, so next on the list is additional educational information. So EPA iWriter, the CCR iWriter has some tips that are preloaded that you can select. These are optional. So for example, the first one is water conservation tips. I want to include those. Source water protection tips. Yep, want to include those. Would you like to include information regarding cross-connection control survey? Nope, I don't need that. And then it also allows you the option to include information about your treatment. So I've selected your water is treated. I'm sorry, I forget about the lag. All right, so now we're on to the treatment options. There's five options that you can choose from in terms of describing your treatment techniques or treatment process if you'd like. I selected option number 3, which is your water is treated by disinfection. And then it also allows you the opportunity to add any additional information, educational information. So some communities that have a specialized lead sampling program may want to include information. Maybe they're doing sampling at schools. Maybe there's a cleanup that they want to talk about. There may be something happening in terms of updates, but this is an opportunity for systems to add that information that they want to. All right, so congratulations, you finished entering information. But not quite yet. You must, so this is saying that you must specify whether the system wants to include the results of voluntary monitoring. So I must have missed something. All right, so we're gonna go back, say no. Let's try this again. All right, so the iWriter does a preliminary check to make sure all the information information in all the sections have been entered, but it doesn't check for accuracy. So once you get your printout, make sure you review your report and make sure everything's correct. Almost done. We have one final checklist. The iWriter comes preloaded with some of these sayings. For example, the information regarding lead, that's already preloaded. There is an option to edit the information. So for example, I could include my utility name. There are some portions of the CCR or additional text that require state approval before changing them. So make sure you work with your states if you're editing some of the information. As you can see, there's red text for missing information. How do I get involved? And that's for including information on how stakeholders can get involved, for example, public meetings, or maybe there's an opportunity to provide comments. All right, so make sure we're spell checking. We host public meetings the second Tuesday of every month. All right. Looks like everything is complete. Now you can see that there's a report option that's available at the top. The iWriter has some reminders in here that you need to send a copy of the report to the primacy agency by July 1st and set a certification by October 1st. Thank you, iWriter. Appreciate that. And I just want to point out that you can download your report as a document or a PDF, and it also has a certification form that you can download and send to your state. But just a reminder to check with your state, because they may have more specific, or they may have a specific form that they want systems to use for their certification of delivery. So I'm going to pull up my report that I downloaded earlier, rather than wait for the system to process it. Okay, so you can see it's looking pretty bland. There's our Spanish statement, is my water safe? Most of the stuff, all this stuff came from stuff that the groundwater well information I entered, and you can see that there's a lot of gaps. So because it's in a Word document, I can edit these. If I find something that needs to be edited, I can edit that. Just to scroll down a little bit, you can change the colors of your the headers on your contaminant table, which you see I've done. All the definitions that are required in the CCR, those are already preloaded in there. You can see it's got some health effects information for a violation. And at the bottom, you see the contact information, and I added my little logo. You can add pictures, logos. It's pretty flexible, but you've got a nice base to work from. And so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. To wrap up here. Just a reminder, check with your state, make sure if they have more stringent requirements, if they have a specific form that you need to use, maybe they have additional guidance on the multilingual requirement that we talked about. And as I promised, here's a list of additional resources. We have our guidance documents. For those systems that want to take advantage of electronic delivery, there's a link to the guidance on that. If you're a water system that wants to include a link to your CCR on the EPA site, there's a link to do that. Again, the iWriter website is there, and additional drinking water trainings that our office hosts, there's a link for that as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And as a reminder, the slides are available for download, so you can copy and paste all of the links that Sarah has provided there. And we're seeing a lot of good questions come in, so please continue to ask those questions. So as we shift to Ed, so Ed is an environmental protection specialist in EPA's Office of Water, and he is a team lead for the effective rule implementation team. Since joining the Office of Groundwater and Drinking Water over 17 years ago, Ed has been involved in the implementation and training of drinking water regulations from rule development through the final rollout. So with that, I will turn it over to Ed.
All right, thank you, Brooke. I wanted to thank everyone again also for participating in this webinar and for sticking through to the end. I'm going to be showing you an online drinking water training system that we developed. We literally, unfortunately, just call it the Drinking Water Training System. If anyone's interested in using it, the link is up at the top of the screen here. In addition, if you just search for EPA online drinking water training, you'll find a link that'll take you to this page. This is the home page. The way that this system has been designed, anyone can use it. You do not have to get access or be approved access in order to use this system. If you're interested in developing a curriculum, this system will track your progress, and when you've completed the curriculum, it will allow you to print a certificate that'll show you and whoever you want to present it to the modules that you took based on that curriculum that you completed. In order to complete any module, and modules are used to build a curriculum, you have to pass the quiz in each of the modules within a curriculum. So what I'm going to first do is very quickly show you how to register. When you come to this home page, if you aren't in there, you would just click this link. And at this point, I'm also going to apologize for the way the screen is going to look. EPA's done some updates recently to our own website, and so I'm going to have to go back now and correct some templates. Everything's on the screen, it just doesn't look quite as nice as it used to. So the first thing you want to do is create a user ID, and that can be anything you want. As you can see up above, we do have some criteria with regards to the password. This, again, I'm going to say this a number of times during this presentation, this is not to create an account to gain access. Everything that's done on this training system is out on the public side, so you're not going through any firewalls or looking at any security. It's really to just create your account. That's what you're using this user ID for. So if I was going to use a new user ID, test 1, 2, 3, and then create my password. And then an address. The reason why we do an address is if in the course of you using the curricula or the training system, you find you have a problem with a module. For instance, you couldn't figure out the right answer, or it seemed like anytime, no matter how you answered it, you couldn't get a right answer, or you don't agree with it. We'll look at that as well. Sometimes the way we've written the questions, we think that they're fairly straightforward. We're not trying to trick anyone or make it complicated, but the way somebody reads something may come across differently, and if we hear about that and there's a way we can correct that, we'll do that. But in order for me to figure out some of these issues that come up, I need that email address in order to contact you to figure out the problem. That said, if you do want to develop a curriculum, but you have no intention of submitting comments or questions or anything like that, you could create a bogus email account just for the sake of doing it, knowing that I won't be able to reach you. And I'm going to do that right now. Let's see. And then we ask for the user type because periodically, as we are looking at the performance of this training system, for instance, I'll go back and look to see are certain questions being missed more than others. And if they are, is it by a particular user group, for instance? And maybe that can help me figure out what's going on with the question. Is it, and for some reason, misleading? And if that's the case, we can figure out how to work with it. I might reach out and contact a couple people to figure out what it was that you were having a problem with. So that's just an example of why I might use the user type. So once I've done that, I'm in. I can create a curriculum. And what I'm going to do is very quickly walk you through some steps. And then I'm going to jump out of here. I'm going to go back in on one of my own accounts to show you some other elements of this training system. So I created my account, I went into it then, and the first thing I want to do is build a curriculum. Before I do that, I just want to show you where the courses are so that you can see them. So we do have a course catalog. And if you click on that, what you will see are a list of the modules, and they're grouped. It's not an obvious order that you may notice, and partly this is done because we do some of this grouping in order to group the modules for when we build the curriculum, and that'll make more sense when I show you how the curriculum builder works. What you see here are the modules, and you see a version over here. Over time, if I find a need to fix a module, that version number will change. Because we did a change to the version of a module does not mean if you've already taken the curriculum and passed it that you have to go back and take the course again. That's not necessary. What you can also do is, if you're just interested in viewing some modules but you don't want to do a full curriculum, you can just launch any one of these modules. They will come up, and the module will launch and then it'll start up. The one component of running a module like this is that you won't be able to take the quiz and get credit for it. In order to take the quiz and get credit, you have to be in the curriculum because that's where it's tracking your progress. But once this module starts up, you have options for how you want to view it. I'm going to show you some of those. While it is playing, you can pause if you want to stop and look at something, and you can use this in case you wanted to, for instance, capture the screen to show it to other people. You can skip through at your own pace if you want to. The module will run at its own pace when it's playing. In addition to that, there is audio and closed captioning if you want to view the module in that manner. If you've decided you've had enough viewing it this way, you can just exit out. And I think I just kicked out of my whole, yes I did. Okay, so I'm going to go back in. This is a perfect time to do it. Actually, I'm in already, I'm still in. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to log out and I'm going to go back in under my own account so that I can show you some other elements. So I'm going to show you the curriculum builder to begin with. The curriculum builder is a series of questions, and the questions, well, all they're really doing are filtering out those modules that do not apply based on how you answer the question. So the first thing you got to do is decide your department. Right now, there's only one choice: regulations. Over time, we will develop some additional departments. We're just not at that place yet. You have two options right now, and I'm going to show you the second option in a moment. But right now, the curriculum builder, as I mentioned, is showing you the questions, and unfortunately, the way you see the screen right now is a function of those templates that I mentioned from the recent update, and we will be fixing those. Normally, you would see the first part of the screen above and the questions below, but all they're doing is asking some general questions. There are 4 types of curriculums that can be built in general. There's actually more than that in combinations. But you can look at overviews of regulations, you can look at monitoring requirements, reporting and record keeping, or compliance calculations. So if I was interested in doing an overview, I would then go to the next question. I'm going to see if I can move this up here. Okay. As you're moving through the questions, what I wanted to point out is it's also telling you how many modules. So there are over 120 modules initially. So by answering that first question, I just cut things down to 29. If I was interested in doing surface water systems, and you'll see that I've now cut the number of modules down to 19. I'm interested in doing non-transient, non-community water systems. And once again, it's cut the number down to 12. I'm interested in systems that filter. And finally, I'm interested in those that disinfect. And I'm currently at 11. And with that, I've developed my curriculum. And what I wanted to show you here is for the curriculum I just created, which is an overview of the regulations for surface water, non-transient, non-community water systems that filter and disinfect. This is the module I just built. And if you had built a module and our curriculum and then walked away and came back a week later, we've got a date for when it was created, so you know you've got the right one. And I point that out because, as you can see, I've got a lot of curriculums that I've built from playing with this thing and doing some other demonstrations. So for this particular curriculum, just to show you what you can learn from the module. In this case, it's going to tell you the modules that are part of the curriculum. It's going to tell you the data was created, the version. So in this case, all the modules are 1. It also will tell you the status. So I've started my curriculum, and in this case, it says I've started something because I built this curriculum earlier today as well, so it kept track of what I'd done so far. If I was interested in going back and picking up where I left off, I could launch this module. And it's going to start again at its own pace. I mentioned I don't have the audio on, but the audio is playing as a default. The closed captioning you can put in anytime you want. In the case of this module, as I'd shown you that I'd already started it, if it happened that I just walked away and wasn't able to take the quiz, I'd mentioned the difference between launching a module within a curriculum and outside. This button will be here when you're back, when you're in a curriculum. So I could go to the quiz right now and start taking the questions. For the sake of time, I'm not going to actually go through the process of answering the questions. I'm just going to move through them, and I'm going to pick the last answer just for the sake of time. Because I do want to show you that it does track. It'll tell you how you did for the quiz. If you got one right, all of them right. In the case of when you do get them all right, it'll tell you so, and it'll track it on the curriculum. If not, it'll give you the option to try again. We recommend that you, so you can see for the status here, I got 2 of them right blindly. You can see which ones you did get wrong, so you could go back and you could just keep repeating the quiz over and over and over until you eventually got the right answer. I will caution you that our quizzes have, while you saw 5 questions pop up, we do have more than 5 questions, and it automatically rotates them through, so you're actually going to have to learn more than 5 questions in order to just blindly work through the answers. We recommend that you do go back to those sections of the module and figure out what it is you got wrong so that you can learn the material and then pass the quiz. So in this case, going back to the, I can go back to the curriculum builder if I wanted to do something else. I've already shown you the course catalog. The curriculum list was that page we were on before that showed you, I showed you that shows your curriculums and your status. And in this case, again, I had started something. I have completed another module. If I decided I didn't like this curriculum at all, I can just go over to remove and just eliminate it, and it would be gone. The other department that I mentioned that's not part of that drop down is what we call general modules. These modules are associated with capacity development, operator certification, asset management. These modules are independent. They are not linked to that curriculum builder, so you can go in and run any of those that you want to. Some of them do have a quiz associated or quiz questions associated with them. Others don't. You can run these at your own leisure. They're not associated, as I mentioned, back to the curriculum, but they are there. Ultimately, when we develop modules that are not part of the regulations, we're going to put them in this general modules section until we decide whether or not we need to develop another department, in which case we'll build that department and you'll see new modules in there as well. So I wanted to make sure I showed you the general modules. They are independent from the regulations. What do I do when I finally complete curriculum? Once that's done, you can move to this certificate list. It's broken into a couple different sections. The first one would tell you, as it is right here, if you've completed any curriculums. And let me go back to my curriculum list to show you how that originated. So in my curriculum list, I have all these curriculums, and you see at the top, curriculum list not completed, and there's all of those. And if I keep on moving to the bottom, you'll see I have completed a curriculum. In this case, I've printed this certificate a number of times now, but it's showing that I've completed this curriculum. So I'm interested in the certificate. I can go back to that link, and if I needed to print it again, I can just hit that link, send it off to the printer, and I have a hard copy to show a listing of what I've completed. And the way that certificate is designed is it's going to list the curriculum as you built it. So here's the summary of it. Again, in this case, it was an overview of regulation requirements for surface water, transient non-community water systems that do not filter but disinfect. And it would list the modules and it would show the status is complete. Now, one question we do get a lot is that they've built curriculums, but they've built curriculums to review certain modules, but they were told, for instance, by their state they could get some credits, but they don't need to do the whole curriculum, just certain modules within the curriculum. Well, that you can do as well. So in this this curriculum right here, what I could do is, you can see I've completed this particular module, and if that was the one they told me to complete for this particular curriculum, I can do a screenshot or a print screen of this particular part of the screen, and that'll show complete. The only way you can get a complete for a status is if you do the module, take the quiz, and pass all the questions in the quiz. Otherwise, that status will always say started if you started the module and haven't passed the quiz. If I've got multiple curriculums and I needed to pull from different modules, I can just go to those different curriculums, do screenshots of those pieces again, and just turn those over to whoever was interested if I'm looking to get some credits. If you do have a problem with any part of the system here, we do have a section there where you can enter the issue that you're having. And I mentioned this is where the email address is handy if you actually want somebody to respond to you. And I will respond to you if I see an email address. I just need to know when. I need a description. I need to know what your problem was. If you couldn't print a certificate, if you were having a problem with the password and you couldn't figure out how to reset it. If you have a problem with the question because you don't agree with it, you can put that in the description. What's real important is that you list the module so that I can then go back to that module and associate the issue you identified to the module so I can figure out what it is you're having a problem with. We then have a way to categorize if it was functionality. So for instance, as I mentioned, you couldn't print a certificate, or if you didn't like the way the quiz question was answered, or you felt the module, one of the slides in the module were misleading. You can pick one of those categories. They're not critical. What I really need is that description and the module. Then your email address. You give me that information, it goes to a report. I try to get into the system weekly if I can. If not, it's definitely every 2 weeks. I try to get in and I review any new issues that have popped up and I get back to those people. Common questions I do get are difficulty printing a certificate, and I'll walk the person through how to do that if they're not using a curriculum and they haven't passed the curriculum, how to get credit for those modules they've passed. We did have some problems when we first launched this tool with updating passwords. That's been resolved. Folks can print the certificates now. That's been resolved. A problem we do see once in a while, for some reason, for some people, and we don't know if it has to do with firewalls or other security components, some people who, for instance, use Chrome can't always get the modules to launch. The way this tool is designed, it works in Explorer, it works in Chrome, it'll work in Firefox. So I typically recommend that you try another browser and see if that won't solve the problem. To my knowledge, switching browsers has addressed that problem so far, but I'm interested to hear if somebody is still having a problem so we can look into it. I'm only aware of one instance where it turned out it had to do with the actual security components where the person worked, so they just did their training at home. We have there's no way we're going to touch anyone else's security, so that was the only workaround I had for that piece. And I think the only other thing I wanted to show you, and I've mentioned it a couple times now, is if you do want to change your password, you just click that link at the top. You're going to follow the same process you did before, And again, these are not to gain access to the system. It's just to create an account so that you can track your own progress. You can move at your own pace with this. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Ed. And thank you to Sarah and Matt. We really appreciate the demos and the presentation.